Now, Texas Republicans have unveiled a new congressional map aimed at securing 5 additional GOP seats in 2026 House elections, prompting Democrats to flee the state in protest and spark threats of nationwide redistrict retaliation. States from California to New York are considering their own counter plans, because as you look at this story right here on your screen, folks, you're going to see that this plan started in Texas, but this is going to grow to California, flipping, having Texas to be 100% red, having California to either be split or turn red, Indiana, New York. Okay, they have a lot of states here, Missouri, and some of these, Florida, some of these states from time to time have flipped blue. Some of them have flipped red. But a lot of these states, they try to consistently have them to stay red. Now, a lot of times people may think that Florida have always been, no, Florida have been blue on some occasion, depending on the candidate. But if you upseat Democratic seats, then you replace them with Republican seats, then they will always have the majority. Because as we look at the map and you look at the amount of votes that each state has, is based upon population. And then that's why they redistrict these things in order to garner more votes so they can have their politicians in place so they can always have the majority. This is why the Democrats are fleeing Texas, to prevent this quorum. And I guess people may, ask the question, is this legal? Because if you're not watching Texas right now, you're not paying attention to the future of America. Because what's happening in Texas isn't just the redistrict, it's red domination. Because Texas Republicans have pushed forward with a strategic redrawing of district maps that could unseat 5 Democratic held seats in the state legislature. But don't get it twisted, because this isn't just about local politics. It's a testing ground, it's a blueprint, and a political war room experiment. We are here for it, folks. This is why they're leaving the state of Texas, because of this redistrict plan. And they're trying to figure out how to stop it. Now, some may argue that the Democrats have majority of the country blue. And now it's time for the GOP to have the same influence, to have the same expansion when it comes through our nation. I know a lot of people may have, what if this works? You better believe that California, New York, Illinois, Indiana, and every battleground state with a GOP foothold is next. They're just going to line these states up. As I showed you, you had Florida, Missouri, Indiana, California, New York on the list. This is about creating a political power vacuum and then filling it with red ink, red seats, and then red votes. So how does this work? Every 10 years following the census, states redraw their legislative maps. And they always show this on CNN, NBC, ABC, Fox. They always show how the country is divided between red and blue. Ideally, that reflects population shifts, but in the hands of political operatives, this becomes a legal weapon when it comes to politics. Because in Texas, the new GOP red district plan could, again, unseat 5 Democratic incumbents, consolidate Republican-heavy rural zones, and fragment urban Black and Latino communities that lean blue. They don't need to win hearts. They just need to move lines. This is why they do what they do, because areas that mostly probably voted Black and Latino, even some white, have always voted blue for their districts, have always voted blue in their counties. But when you redistrict and you redraw these lines, they don't have to win the hearts and minds of the people. See, as I told you guys before, you guys are looking at this as we are living in a democracy. We're living in a republic with representatives. And when representatives just draw a couple of lines and move a couple of seats and put people in place, then the people, you have to vote for a Republican. That's going to be your choice, a Republican or Republican. And believe me when I tell you this, it's all legal under the guise of redistricting. The Supreme Court has already ruled that the partisan gerrymandering is not unconstitutional. This is the Supreme Court stating, folks, that is not unconstitutional. And that means redrawing maps to help their party, whoever party, Democrats or Republicans, that is perfectly fine as long as it is not racially discriminatory, which they know how to disguise. It can be racial discriminatory even against, white, Black, Hispanic, and Asians, because not all Black people vote democratically. Not all white people vote for the Republic or for the Republicans, as well as Asians and Hispanics and all others. This is not all inclusive of how one demographic of people vote for another, but this is the majority. Now, historically and unfortunately, majority of Black Americans have voted democratically. And again, that stems back from Lyndon B. Johnson signing inside the Civil Rights Act and Dr. Martin Luther King, supporting the Democratic Party because of the civil rights legislation. Now, if we come back in history and we look at a lot of the achievements that Black Americans have made socially and economically, and when it comes to our civil rights, those privileges and rights, and again, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not an independent, I'm just giving you the truth, have been passed, have been supported, okay, this is prior civil rights, by the Republican Party. I think sometimes we just forget that the Dixiecrats, the party of the KKK, and again, I could break down and give you a whole rundown of what the Republicans have done historically and what the Democrats have done historically. And even to this day, the Democrats just get Black faces and white places to have you to go ahead and vote, and we continue to receive nothing. We really need to wake up. And I'm not telling anyone to vote for the Republican Party, and I'm not telling anyone to vote for the Democratic Party. I'm just telling you to vote on your morals, value, ethics, and what you want out of this country and what you need out of this country. Just because someone sounds good, just because someone speaks to your feelings, this is about Black and white. Because I told you, this country is not moral. This country is not ethical. This country is ran by laws and policies and regulations. Every law that's on the book is not ethical. Every law that's on the book is not moral. It's Black and white. And even with Black and white, believe me, there's 1,000 times more 50 shades than gray when it comes to politics in America. And the question I know some of you have is how the GOP could use this nationally. How could this comb out through all these different places? As I was showing you guys here, let me just go run through these states that the GOP plans on redistricting and redrawing lines. Again, we already been talking about Texas. California is a huge one. That's a huge one, okay? Indiana, New York, Missouri, Florida, I think that was the last one. Yeah, so again, we have all of these states, okay? We have all of these states that they plan on just changing the dynamics of that state on. And a lot of you may say, good, California does need to turn red. Maybe it'd be cleaned up. Maybe they wouldn't have so much homelessness. But I wonder if I were to think about the strategy that the GOP would essentially take, how would they go about doing this? Well, first, they're already testing the model in Texas. Unseat the Democrats, survive legal challenges, and normalize the tactic. This is very simple, in my opinion. And then if they export the models to states like Indiana, Florida, Wisconsin, Georgia, where Republicans hold the legislature over the governorship, they can fragment Democratic districts, especially in urban, Black, Latino, Asian, immigrant heavy zones, low impoverished white people that are aware of their circumstances, so they vote Democrat. Keep blue voters split across multiple districts so they never reach a majority. Protect Republican incumbents by building safe districts that make them untouchable, even in swing states. Flip swing states red, not through elections, but through map manipulation. Now, imagine this playing out in every state where red controls the pen. What do you get? When we talk about local legislation, local legislators, Republican majority, state houses, Republican dominance, U.S. House of Representatives, you'll now have a red wave, which historically has been the blue wave. Senate seats, they'll be locked in through engineered voting power. And of course, the presidency within striking range, because the electoral college math begins to shift in the GOP favor. This isn't just about redistricting. It's not. This is electoral engineering that is going to play out over a very long time, that the GOP will continue to win. And again, I'm not giving you this as I'm for or against, because when I look to vote, as I comb through candidates, not their personal account, what are the policies that they plan to in place? What are the policies they plan to pass when they're in office? But nonetheless, let's just say that this strategy succeeds, that the GOP are going about this. What happens when one party has a chokehold on every level of government? As we look at the judiciary branch, Republican governors can appoint conservative judges at the state level. State education boards, red ideologies dominate school curriculums. Yeah, this is going to go all through the infrastructure of every facet of America. We're talking about not only a red wave, but a red tsunami, because they would change, the justice system. They would change the education boards. What about voting laws? Republican-led legislators passed voter ID laws that, essentially roll back early voting and purge some roles. And again, I am for voter ID. Yes, you should have you should have a legitimate ID when voting. Yes, we should be able to identify you're voting for these very influential and powerful positions in America, whether it be the president, the Senate, the Congress, your local alderman, your councilman, your governor. Yeah, you should have voter ID. In regards to Congress, with gerrymandered maps, GOP seats become untouchable. No amount of campaigning can flip them back. As it pertains to the Senate, even with fewer people, red states start outweighing blue influence because of how state representation works. And the presidency, again, electoral college, math starts tilting red, not because more people vote Republican, but because the map have been rigged to favor them. That is what we're referring to. Now, compound that over decades. What do you get? You get a Democratic Party box out. And the only thing they can do is shout from the sidelines while the GOP runs up the score. You'll get a generation of people and voters who will be neutralized. Now, as it pertains to demographics, ethnics, and race, and as I stated, even though more Black Americans are voting Republican, they're coming back to their wits in some regards, not saying that I support that or that I don't support that. But as it pertains today, you'll get a generation of, Black, Latino, young, and immigrant voters neutralized, not by force, but by finesse. This is a finesse job. This is a slow motion political erasure, not with voter suppression tactics we've seen before with a pen and a district map. And the question still remains, why does this matter in 2026, 2028, and beyond? Because again, this is not about 2025. The midterms in 2026, if the GOP flips key states red, Democrats could lose dozens of local and federal seats, many permanently. And as we look at the 2028 presidential race, if electoral college lines shift due to red state growth and redistrict dominance, a GOP candidate could win without winning the popular vote. Again, we look at the 2030 census. Republicans could control how future data is interpreted and how maps are redrawn, locking in power until 2040. Again, this is a red tsunami because, again, they can change how things have always been done to favor the strategy they have in place of remapping and drawing and redistricting these lines. They can interpret how data is viewed and how then they can continue to redistrict and eventually turn the majority of the country red. Now, here's the wildest part. They don't need a majority of Americans to support them. They just need enough map control to silence the majority. Where is the democracy that I keep hearing people state? I keep hearing saying we the people and the founding father and the Constitution. Sounds great, folks, but when you start to do your research and actually read these things, there isn't enough map control to silence the majority because they will be in place. Again, we live in a republic, not a democracy, and this is about representation. So now they're figuring out how to represent people from the GOP, Republican Party, just as well as the Democrats, of people who never wanted to be represented by that political party. So after stating all of that, one question remains. What can be done? What can happen to slow this down, stop this? I can think of a couple things. Federal voting rights legislation, something like the Johns Lewis Act could outlaw extreme gerrymandering, but that's stuck in Congress. It has not been passed. Independent redistrict commissions in states like Michigan, California prove there is another way, but those only exist because citizens fought hard to build them. Will they continue to fight hard to sustain them? Mass voter education and turnout still matters, but in a rigged system, the margins continue to shrink regardless. And this is why I believe how we may teach our children, our teenagers, our young adults about finance, the economy. We should also teach them about politics. It doesn't have to go as in depth, but give them the very basics. Not stating, oh, we vote Democrat in this house. Man, we vote Republican. We are conservative in this house. Nothing on those terms. Have them to read legislation, laws that are proposed to being passed, and have them to decipher their decisions based on their lives. So I guess I'm questioning, will the Democrats fight the maps or just fight each other as they always have been doing? And this is the reason why the Democrats lost, because they have a lot of infighting. They don't know who's going to be their leader going forward. They're talking about Jasmine Crockett. They're talking about Beto O'Rourke. They're talking about Kamala Harris may come back inside the picture, even though she dropped out and trying to be a governor somewhere. They have no clear directions. Because let me tell you this, if the Democrats lose these maps that I've been referencing, they will lose the game. And when it comes to politics, ladies and gentlemen, the only game that's being played are the ones that we're in, because again, they're the game makers.